All right, we're off and running. Wagers on Campus, July 4th, fireworks special edition. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's the Wagers on Campus college football podcast. This is episode number 2 of the 2025-2026 college football season. We're back. We recorded last week, and today we're going to be getting into each conference's win totals, the odds to win the conference, the odds to make the playoffs, the odds to win the championship. We're going to talk about a couple of other things as well, like Heisman odds and games of the year to look forward to. But Burns, what's up, brother? We're about 7 weeks away from week 0 college football.
Yeah. Yep. Happy to be here. Just so excited putting together this piece because I'm a bit of a future slut when it comes to just getting my paws on it. I think it's because during the season you only have 6 days, sometimes 2 days when we're talking Maction. But right now we're sitting with all these bets in front of us 4 months away. They came out about a month and a half ago. And gosh, I just want to put a little money on all of them.
Yeah. Looking at the board, it can be like a kid in a candy shop seeing Las Vegas for the first time, got a million screens in front of you. The stimulation is real. Burns, before we get into college football, you got anything going on for the 4th of July?
Nope, just hotter than what is it? Hotter than a cat on a tin roof? Something stupid like that, Southern saying?
I say hotter than fish grease.
Hotter than fish grease? Okay. Hotter than your mother's ass? How about that? That's just a Sopranos thing, folks. Let's take it easy. Listen, it's stepping outside. You just feel disgusting. We did the big downtown 4th of July thing last year here in Nashville. And just going to stay on the east side here, in my 30s now. Not that crazy to just go out all hot and bothered in gigantic crowds. And the 4th, bit of an overrated holiday to me if you're not on a lake. That's all I'm saying. Some sort of body of water.
Buddy, you've been in your 30s for like 5 years.
That's why I haven't gone down there. We had an Airbnb last year on the other side of the river with a rooftop balcony to see the fireworks.
I know. I was with you.
Yeah, likely story.
I'm not doing much, hanging out with family, chilling in the pool, but I'll be listening to more college football podcasts. This morning, I listened to an interview between Coach Sark and Greg McElroy. That was a good conversation, just talking Texas football. Obviously, they play your boys, Ohio State, in week 1 in a massive game in Columbus to kind of kick off the season. And I'm sure we'll talk about that game quite a bit more leading up to it. But, 4th of July, just family time, pool time. Same thing over here in Florida. Very hot. But, hey, half day tomorrow at work and then off on Friday. So that's cool.
Yeah. Speaking of hot, I guess it's illegal to just have sex as a Mormon now, even though he's a Jew. I mean, what did they expect when I know there's some sort of honor code that has to be something that's just wildly gray area of any sort of legal. Have you been following the Jake Retzlaff story?
Yeah, a little bit, but just when the news broke, what else has been people who don't know, just like summarize what's going on.
So BYU star quarterback, aka BYU, who took the nation's hearts last year. And had BYU set up for a really good season. Announced on Monday his plans to transfer. Shortly after it was announced there was a civil suit for sexual assault. And BYU mentioned that there were going to be a suspension that looked like rumored around 7 games for breaking their honor code, which is they make sure that their players, or they asked their players to abide by not having sex while playing football for BYU. Any athletes. I think that's any students. I mean, is there some sort of soak patrol walking around the campus? Like, are there coaches and like GAs that are like with a little cup at the end of the door, making sure there's no clapping sounds going on late at night? Like, how do you? Has to be the only way you can get caught is if you tell on yourself or if this thing comes out, right?
Well, he got caught because he was accused of sexual assault.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Either you caught in some sort of legal claim or you just tell on yourself.
I mean, yeah. Well, yes, that would be the only way. Your theory is possible, but unlikely.
Yeah, so I guess both sides, cases been dismissed since then. So this has been a whirlwind of news story, and it has shaken the futures market, which is appropriate that we'll be talking about it. I would hope any books holding any BYU overs would rescind those tickets because I know they certainly wouldn't want someone holding an under because that line has moved down to 6.5, 7.5 places. I've seen 6.5 a lot more. But anyway, I mean, it completely changes the identity of this team. I really love this team with him at quarterback. I thought they could be a playoff team. I thought they could be pushing 11 wins and possibly an undefeated season with how their schedule's shaped out. And so this breaking news, I mean, from my understanding, even with the charges dismissed, some of the legal Twitter I follow, they said it sounds like from a civil side, there were some sort of agreed terms off the books that will never be discussed. So it wasn't even like a settlement. Case was dismissed. But the BYU would still uphold the honor code, and he's staring down a 7-game suspension, and he's just not looking to do that. So I believe he's fully intent on transferring. But since that window is closed, he would not be able to play this upcoming season wherever he transfers.
Wow. Just crazy news. Unexpected. If you're a BYU fan, you just have to be devastated. Like you said, they had a great year last season and the expectations were high. And now it feels like the season is over before it even begins with your star quarterback now no longer in the fold.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't transferred out. He just announced his initial transfer. I mean, that's why his Heisman odds are still up, and that's why there's still odds. So, I mean, powers that be, sometimes that football money can really do some talking on your morality, especially when this particular person isn't a practicing Mormon. That's where I just kind of question the validity of this. I understand you're holding everyone, no one's above. When you're participating as a team, you have to abide by the rules that the team agrees to, but that football money can talk, Mayor, and we'll see if he actually gets suspended or with the case being dismissed.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to talk about before we get into some of these conferences and some of the futures?
Yeah, there was two other things that came out. The biggest rivalry in sports, Michigan, Ohio State. I don't know if you saw this. Jeremiah Smith, interesting quote. I wouldn't call it bulletin board material because he was asked about the loss to Michigan last year. He said, I'm not a sore loser, but I hate losing. And I don't know what it is about that team, but I hate them. I just hate everything about them. And I can promise you in my final 2 years, we won't be losing to that team. And then I guess Bryce Underwood linked up with LeBron for some sort of Nike meetup or something like that. And LeBron, obviously, honorary Ohio State grad. He's a big Ohio State fan. Bryce Underwood said, "Oh, y'all boys are cooked in Columbus." That's what I would take as bulletin board material. So even in July, this heated rivalry, a lot of talking going already. It feels like almost a distraction for both teams, which is not needed for the schedule that they have in front of them.
I'm fine with Jeremiah's comments. Those comments sound fucking baller to me. I would be hyped to hear my best player talking like that about your rival. As far as Underwood's comments to LeBron, yeah, maybe chill, maybe like play a college football game before you start saying stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe beat like UTEP first, and then we'll start moving forward, right?
Yeah, maybe play like 10 snaps in a game. You know, yeah. I know he's excited and he's probably just saying it in like jest, but pump the brakes, kid.
Yeah, those are the two biggest things that jumped out to me this past week. But yeah, let me pull up the futures here and let's go through them.
Cool. I think we should start honestly with the bigger conferences because for people who are tuning in or listening, I think we should give them the top conferences first.
Oh, okay. All right. Starting the ACC. Let your boys zoom in on this.
Perfect. This is great. You just pull it up and I don't have to split screen my laptop.
Yep. Yeah, so everything's going to be sorted by win total. When I look at this, ACC jumps out. Obviously, the first thing that jumps out to me is those title odds when we're looking at the when you'll see the other three conferences at hand. 15-1 Clemson, and then their second favorite in the conference is 50, followed by 100 Miami, Louisville subsequently. Listen, that's a weak conference. You're not going to see many teams in this sport come up and win titles with those preseason odds. It's just the talent at the top is just too deep. Too many teams are putting together 12-plus guys in the NFL in individual seasons, not to mention the guys that aren't eligible to be drafted. So that Ohio State team that won the title, all said and done, might have 20 guys that played in that game go to the NFL. A couple notes. One of my favorite bets of the future season is in this pool. Want to take a guess at what that is?
North Carolina over 7.5.
No. Not touching that bet. That is no thank you. It's close though on the when you're viewing it.
Tell us.
It is Haynes King and those Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets over 7.5 wins. When I look at this team, listen, they didn't have as much a big of a win streak as South Carolina, but that game that they lost to Georgia, the last game of the season, felt like, and then the opening game against Florida State, it just felt like this team under Brent Key has an absolute just fire lit under their ass. They lose Jackson Haynes to Michigan, but they get Eric Rivers, like we highlighted a ton on the last show. So Haynes King gets some help on the outside. I'm telling you, man, watch out for this team. I really like them at 13-1 value to win this conference as well.
I love Brent Key. He's transformed the culture at Georgia Tech. Or at least that's what it appears on the outside looking in. But how could you argue that he hasn't? Like you said, that Georgia game goes into 8 overtimes or whatever it was. And his teams, they just play hard and they play with a chip on their shoulder. I think the evolution with Georgia Tech is going to be they don't have a problem stepping up to quality opponents, but they do have a problem when they play teams that are worse than them. And they typically will step down to their competition. They got to be the alphas in the games that they're expected to win. I think that's the next step for them, to have that maturity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Their schedule, however, they're open up the season again, not week 0, but on Friday of that week 1 at Colorado, night game. And Colorado is going to be the team with a bunch of question marks, a bunch of players that haven't played together yet. Obviously, Dion loves his transfer portal. So who knows? And Gardner Webb win. Clemson toughest game of the year until Georgia. Temple win. Wake Forest win. Virginia Tech at home win off a bye. At Duke, that's a favorable road game. At Boston College, favorable road game, and at North Carolina State, those are favorable road games. When I look at a schedule, I want favorable road games. I don't want deflating road games that could just kind of side rail a season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, looking at this list in the ACC, I mean, Clemson and Miami both being at the top with 9.5 wins is their line. I mean, I would much rather be on Clemson over 9.5 than I would Miami over 9.5. I mean, that almost doesn't make sense to me with Clemson's odds when you look at to win the title, to make the playoffs, to win the conference. They're all much better than Miami, yet the win total is the same. So I'm assuming Clemson has some out of conference opponents that are tough, or their ACC schedule is just harder than Miami's.
Yeah, open with LSU, at Georgia Tech, like we just mentioned. They get SMU, Louisville, at South Carolina to end the year. That rivalry is really starting to beef up. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough schedule. Right there, Georgia Tech, South Carolina, LSU could be the 3 losses, and they're 9-3. But
no doubt.
Still available to win the conference because LSU's outside of the conference. So is South Carolina.
Yeah. I guess just kind of quick random thought looking at this list. Virginia Tech at 6.5. Man, last year, like we talked about, I mean, them and NC State, some people thought that they were dark horses to make the playoff or something like that. And now all of a sudden, both of them are sitting at 6.5. I mean, I know Virginia Tech returns their quarterback, Drones. So there could be some value there.
Yeah, for sure. Opening with South Carolina, though, and then get Vanderbilt after that incredible game last year at Vandy. So that's a tough little SEC back-to-back, whoever's scheduling that. But they probably didn't expect Vanderbilt to be worth a shit in 2025. So that's totally fair. But their road games are going to be at Georgia Tech, at NC State, but they get Miami at home, at Florida State, and then Louisville at home. It's a tough schedule for a team that needs to definitely bounce back from last year.
What do you think of your Syracuse Orange men? Didn't they win 10 games last year?
Yeah, they did. And obviously a couple tough losses, particularly to Stanford, that really derailed my season win total or my season future bet there to make the playoff. Completely different team. You got 2 guys battling out. Expect to be Angeli, the transfer from Notre Dame, to be the quarterback. But, yeah, we'll see. Kyle McCord, like I said, I had nothing but good things to say about him. When he's out of the spotlight, he's an incredible quarterback. I think Angeli is, no real production. Syracuse is going to be a completely different team. The one thing that stuck out to me is, if you remember last year, Florida State, I believe, was 9.5. Won 3 games, up to 6.5. Are they expecting Norvell to really bounce back, or should he be fired in week 3? Because they open up with Alabama and then Miami and Pitt back-to-back weeks in October, with Clemson on the schedule, with Florida on the schedule. It's, man, oh man, Florida State.
Yeah, we'll see, right? I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. The only other thing that stuck out to me is how medium heavy, bowl expectations are for this conference from Vegas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are above bowl eligibility, with 3 more right at 5.5. So just, if we're talking about conferences that can make ReliaQuest bowls, this might be the conference with the most representation. But I just thought that was pretty interesting, how it's just all sitting there at mid-teams.
Yeah, exactly. Some of those teams are going to far surpass their win totals, and then there's going to be a couple that don't even come close.
One other thing that jumped out to me, I'll point this out in another conference. Miami 2-1 to make the playoff, 50-1 to win the title. I think that's insane disparity, and really just please do not back Carson Beck to win a national title.
That's crazy. Yeah, if you think they're good enough to make the playoffs, you should just sprinkle on them to win the whole thing, because that's, like you said, that's insane disparity.
Yeah. Yep. Good in the ACC?
Yep.
All right. Let's go to Big Ten. There's a couple things that jump out to me in the Big Ten. Very top heavy, right? Some of the biggest make the playoff odds. I think 3 of the top 4, throw Texas in there, but the 3 at the top of the Big Ten to make the playoff: Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. It's very interesting. But a couple things that jump out to me when I look at this is Iowa 6.5. I think they have an extremely favorable schedule when we look at the programs with win totals that low. And then the other one is hits home for you. Your boys, they're in Evanston. 3.5 for Northwestern. I like the quarterback they brought in. I thought they showed some grit last year. How is that not over this year?
Yeah, exactly. What did they win last year? 7 games, including a bowl game?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It's the ultimate doubt me program. And then just their fans will be doing alumni trips to the bowl game all the time.
Yeah, looking here, I mean, Wisconsin, what a fall from grace. 5.5 is their over-under. That's not the standard that they've set in Madison over the last 10, 15 years. And here they are at 5.5 is their over-under. I just can't help myself. I need to bring it up because they should be better than that. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah. I was looking at their schedule last night, and whoever scheduled this particular year seems like they were just like, and you're like, oh, I'll just that's future Xander's problem. That's future Mayer's problem.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like, because you got at Bama, a bye week, at Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, at Oregon, and then at Indiana, with Illinois on the schedule as well, and then at Minnesota to close out. Listen, that's a brutal schedule. Brutal road games, home games that are sandwiched in between with no rest. That's why it's sitting so low. That number also jumped out to me last night, and when I actually dove into the schedule, it's like, oh, stay away from that number because this could be an ugly season for Wisconsin.
Other thoughts would be Nebraska over 7.5 wins. I mean, this has to be the year with everything that has culminated. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but oh my God, the hype around Nebraska. Everyone was excited. If like Nebraska fans were excited last year, and they probably would have told you that no, it's not this year. Like this year's kind of like a building block, but 2025 is actually going to be the year where we're competing. I'm sure that's what they would have said. I know that their defense is pretty good, and over 7.5 seems very doable in my eyes.
Yeah. Listen, man, they're a Thursday game, week 1. We're going to see it right off the jump. It's at Arrowhead. So Patrick McCombs himself, I'm talking about Raiola, can show off on his boys' field against Cincinnati. I mean, that's a team. I love Sorsby. They're a feisty team this year. But then Akron and then FCS school. Then they host Michigan. Their road games, Maryland, Minnesota, and then the toughest road game is at Penn State, but that's off a bye late in November.
Wow.
I really agree with you. They have soft Big Ten teams like Michigan State, Maryland, UCLA. Sorry, Northwestern. But yeah, I agree. If this is their year, and on top of that, because of that schedule, where's it at? As the outlier fourth Big Ten team, I don't mind them playing the Indiana role, 7-1 odds to make the playoff this year.
Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. And I guess on the opposite side of that spectrum, I mean, I know that their schedule isn't all that difficult relative to some other teams, but Indiana, I mean, why would you want to be on the over 8.5? I mean, if your answer is because it's going to cash, then fair enough. But like, really, we're gonna buy the stock of a team that just got good last year and also is bringing in a new quarterback? I don't love that.
Yeah, I mean, they were off a new quarterback and new system last year, though, and they followed up with, I mean, them and I can't say this with a straight face to Michigan because they scheduled my boy Mateer without knowing, but they have the softest non-conference schedule: Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State.
Okay, yeah,
So
easy 3-0 for sure.
yeah, exactly. They do have to go to Oregon and Penn State, but they've got like Purdue, Wisconsin, UCLA, Michigan State, Maryland on the schedule. It's like it's another pretty favorable schedule for a Kurt Signetti team.
Exactly. So that's what would give me cause for pause in terms of betting the under if they're having a cupcake schedule. What are your thoughts on USC at 7.5? That kind of seems like a low key under the radar type bet where USC will definitely clear 7.5 wins.
Yeah, I think this is a big time stay away. Even if you're a fan, it's like they're in the territory, especially Lincoln Riley. You got to prove it to me before I'm putting a 4-month bet on you. Obviously, this is what the SEC is facing right now, where it's brand notoriety, and like you can't picture Southern Cal being bad for this long, or like they can definitely make it just because they're Southern Cal. And it's like, well, this ain't Pete Carroll and Reggie Bush walking out of that tunnel anymore. It's a big time prove it to me game. I mean, they have to go to Notre Dame. Remember that, even through a Big Ten schedule. So, I mean, at least they played Missouri State and Georgia Southern, Purdue, Michigan State. But at Oregon, at Notre Dame, host Michigan, at Illinois, who I really like at that 7.5 number. And then even teams like Iowa and at Nebraska. That's a tough schedule, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But back to the one that really stuck out to me that we didn't really cover, but I really like is it's Iowa. And if they beat their rival week 2 at Iowa State, who we'll talk about here when we get to the Big 12 next, listen, they open up with Albany, all right, at Iowa State. I mean, that's the big rivalry game, Cyhawk. That's going to be a 10-9 shootout. But UMass, Rutgers, that Indiana team we just talked about, a bye week before going to Wisconsin, and then they bring Penn State to Kinnick. They bring Oregon to Kinnick. And, you know, the toughest road game might be USC. This Iowa team sitting there at 6.5 wins, 2 capable quarterbacks in Gronkowski and Hank Brown. They can throw a forward pass versus the last 7 years of Iowa football. We know the defense is going to be there, especially at home. Tell me how this team doesn't get to 7 wins.
I agree. I think that's a bet that I will be tailing you on. It sounds like Gronkowski, the quarterback, is someone who's actually expected to be good.
Yeah, exactly. It's if he's not good, if neither of these guys, if they both turn into what we've seen the last 7 years, it's definitely there's some sort of curse or something going on at that stadium. It was built on a burial grounds and it's just popping up now. But yeah, these guys that they brought in are too good to have the offensive production that they've had the last half decade.
Oh, wow. So they brought in Hank Brown from Auburn.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Yeah, and I think one team we should highlight that haven't really talked about in any previews or anything really is how's Oregon going to respond? They have a very light schedule as well. Their non-conference is Montana State and a down Oklahoma State team that we'll see is below bowl predictions. Same with Oregon State. They do have to go to Happy Valley, and I think that's going to be the whiteout game. Yep, Saturday the 27th of September. But other than that, they get their Pac-12 teams like Washington, USC. Man, what do you think about this and Dante Moore?
I mean, overall, I feel like Dan Lanning has built a good program over at Oregon, and I know their defense has some key returning players that they're bringing back. I know that their defense is pretty versatile from the standpoint of like they like to play more players than like a typical college football team, like on the defensive side of the ball. Like, for example, if a regular college team plays, 13 guys in a game who regularly see the field, Oregon plays more. So they like to get their guys experience. So I think those guys from last year, that'll help them this year. I mean, overall, I still look at Oregon as one of the top teams in college football. And just because they don't have Dylan Gabriel anymore and Derek Harmon doesn't mean that, they're not going to like still be one of the best teams in the sport. So my expectations for them are still extremely high. I don't think they're going to beat Penn State on the road, especially early in the season. I think if I was an Oregon fan, I'd rather have that game later in the season once they've had some time to kind of maybe gel and find their identity personally. So I guess your question would have to be, is there another 2 losses on the schedule? If you want to bet they're under.
Well, just one loss, 12 games is regular season win total. So if you don't think they're beating Penn State, can they slip up somewhere along the road? And that's kind of what I'm feeling with Ohio State. What's your input on Ohio State? How could we avoid them? I can't. Listen, personally, this isn't being any sort of a reverse jinx or anything. I don't think they're going to beat Texas week 1. I just don't think the experience is there. I think Texas is a far superior experienced team. I like what Archer's put on the field so far, and we have question marks really everywhere just because of it completely reloaded. And so if I think they're going to lose week 1, you got to go perfect the rest of the season. You can't slip up, even though that could still mean you're easily making the playoffs. Your win total, I don't know. I think there's more opportunities to profit off Ohio State's in other areas besides their win total.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and as for some of these other teams, just really need to drill deep into Minnesota, Washington. We don't have to bet every win total, but seeing those numbers, when I see 7.5, that means a team has potential to kind of run up and grab something. I didn't see Washington being that team this year, so interested to dive into there. And then Michigan, 8.5, true freshman quarterback. You have to go to Oklahoma. You obviously have to back up your shit talking to Ohio State. I'm not sure if this team is a 9-win team. That's the last thing I'll say.
Yeah, their defense should be good. It usually is, but offense will be the question mark.
Yep. Brought in Haynes from Georgia Tech. Will it be enough? Who knows? New Mexico, Central Michigan should really be testing them in the non-conference. But yeah, at Oklahoma, at Nebraska, at USC, at little brother Michigan State, and at Evanston. That game's at Wrigley Field this year. That's the Wrigley Field game. So we'll see.
Northwestern has multiple Wrigley Field games while they get that new stadium built because it gets so unbelievably windy right next to the lake that they physically cannot play the games like come November.
I mean, I'm surprised they're not playing that game for Oregon. They're playing it at the Evanston Stadium.
Oh, I would love to be there for that game.
Man, talk about a potential. Let's circle that game for an under and a potential shock the world upset if they're playing right there on the water.
You're right. Oregon under 10.5.
Absolutely. All right, we good to move to the. You like any playoff or title contenders out of this?
No. I mean, at least not in this episode. We can move on.
All right. Let's go to the Big 12, why don't we? Fumbled myself there.
Yeah. Is that our new transition sound?
Oh, man. Listen, this one really jumped out at me. Look at the win totals in this league, Mayor. Look at the absolute shit show that is. Their best odds to make the playoff are 5-1. This is a banana land conference, so wide open, especially with BYU, like I said, dropping to 6.5. Yeah, or Oklahoma State is rounding out the bottom. But what are your first impressions as someone that hasn't seen this list when you look at this?
Well, yeah, everything you said is true. First impressions would be Arizona State. They're at the top. 8.5 is their win total. They're 5-1 to make the playoff. They're tied with Kansas State and Texas Tech. I've heard Texas Tech brought in a bunch of transfers this offseason. I don't love that from the standpoint of like continuity with a team, but hey, maybe it'll all work out, and maybe that talent is just so good that it'll all come together and it'll be fine. But Arizona State, I like the momentum that they built last season, and I expect them to carry that into this year. And then Kansas State always seems to be a steady Eddie type program that's pretty good, but I'm not sure if they can take that next step and maybe like make the playoff. Baylor, especially with their quarterback Sawyer Robertson, he really was on fire at the end of last season. Baylor was one of those teams that caught momentum as the season went on. So I'm curious if they're going to continue to build that momentum. And Baylor is a program, as we all know, that has had a lot of success in college football. So Baylor definitely catches my attention, Burns. Utah at 7.5. I'm not really sure what to make of that because like Utah last season, so much hype around Utah, and they had a bunch of injuries and underperformed and did not meet expectations. But are they now a sleeper team that people aren't talking enough about? That would be a question of mine for sure, because they've definitely built a very good program over there. And then how can I not bring up Colorado at 6.5 wins? I mean, Deion Sanders in his life, all he has done is win. The guy is a proven winner, whether you love him or whether you hate him. All he does is win and finds ways to win. And now he's going into year 3 in that program. I have a tough time believing that he is not going to get over 6.5 wins in this conference with his pedigree. Those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. Sticking on Colorado, and we talked about opening game versus Georgia Tech is going to be a tough test. Even if they don't pass that and they find their way through the Big 12, they are hosting second to last week Arizona State, who's favorite to win this conference. So that could be a showdown if everything does play out well. I will say it will be good for Colorado to not have the Shedeur effect, father-son. Just take the obviously ESPN is going to still shove Colorado down our throats with Deion on the sideline, but now there's a little less here, that we're packing in. Listen, there's one team that really sticks out to me. I'll talk about them in a second, but when we look at Arizona State, that's going to be the darling. I expect this team to get the most tickets from the public. When you see an 8.5 total, even though Scadaboo left, it's all about Dillingham and Levitt are still there. Same with Jordan Tyson. So we look at their non-conference schedule, favorable. Northern Arizona, at Mississippi State, should be a win, even though night game. Yeah, Toledo went in the night game last year and just laid the shit pumping.
I
on
hear you.
Mississippi State.
I hear you. I'm still not ready to like buy into Arizona State if they're like that type of team.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then, I mean, they're tough, but they do play. Yeah, I mean, I just think Vegas sees this team playing a tough Big 12 schedule because the teams you just named, Baylor, Utah, Texas Tech, are all on the schedule. Same with Colorado, a Richwad, West Virginia team. And then the team that I really like the most in this conference, and that's Matt Campbell's Iowa State Cyclones. Arizona State has to play them too. Listen, they open up with Farmageddon, which is wild because this is the Dublin game this year, Farmageddon, week 0.
So stupid.
They ended the regular season playing each other. I mean, I can't remember the last time that two teams have ended the regular season and then played each other the next regular season game.
Well, for Texas, it's for them this year, but not Ohio State.
Well, that was postseason though, because they did play. Each team played a bowl game. I just meant like they could control the scheduling, and they decided to do this. It just doesn't make sense.
I hate it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd rather see this game than Troy versus Alabama in Dublin. Like I expect this game to at least be competitive and fun to watch, but why would you take that away from the campuses and the fans? This rivalry game. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, the Irish, they've known to farm, so I guess it can still withhold the name of the rivalry. But yeah, kind of wild. It is week 0, so to be fair though, we do get a good week 0 game. Last year we had an unknown good week 0 game with Florida State, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech coming in as a 10.5 point dog. Right now, Kansas State is a 3-point favorite over Iowa State. I love Iowa State this season. Listen, that game is going to make a lot, but they get South Dakota, Arkansas State on the schedule, a lowly Arizona team. We'll see about Cincinnati. BYU without Retzlaff now is a very winnable game. And I think their toughest game on the schedule is going to be Iowa and Arizona State. Other than that, Oklahoma State, listen, I every year we've gone into it, I'm sure you'll see this around talking heads too. Is this finally Iowa State's year? I mean, Mike Tomlin is 500 in the NFL. Matt Campbell's got to be Mr. 7-5 in college football. Is he ever going to get over the hump and finally win a Big 12 title? I think this is the best opportunity he has with Rocco Becht coming back. Best quarterback, in my opinion, he's had. I know he had Brock Purdy.
I think calling Matt Campbell Mr. 7-5 is a little disrespectful to him. And I know you're a big Matt Campbell fan.
Yeah. Listen, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. It just feels like he's always 8-4, 7-5, 6-6.
Mr. 8-4 is much better. Burns, this comment's not going to make any sense. Maybe it will, but looking at the teams in the Big 12, I think this is what college football is all about. Just looking at the Big 12 just screams college football.
Yeah, agreed. This is like a Big 10 junior. This is just Middle America teams, a couple West Coast teams, but Middle America teams that are just gritty as hell. And I'll tell you what, the College Football Committee would absolutely love for 2 9-3 teams to be playing in the conference championship from this conference, so they can have 4 SEC, 4 Big 10, and just one team from the Big 12.
Absolutely.
And that's what Vegas has it as right now. You like any futures I already told you mine. I like Iowa State 14-1 to win the conference now. I don't see it really changing that much as we get towards the season, but I should have said this off the top. Because I don't really see it changing, I'm not going to place it today on July 2nd. If it gets to 12, I'll take that loss, but I just want to make sure we're fully healthy going into the season. Losing a quarterback means the world to a lot of these programs, as we saw with BYU. And, if there's anything that really jumps out, like a 500 to 1 number, I would take that today, or like 250 to 1. But I don't see that really moving either.
I like your Iowa State thought. I wouldn't mind Baylor at 8 to 1 to win the conference, or 6 to 1 to make the playoff, but that's not great value. So I'd probably pass on the make the playoff and just go 8 to 1 to win the conference. And Colorado, man, if you're looking for a flyer, again, why would you want to just actively doubt Deion? That's just so dumb, in my opinion. I know it's a long shot, but 33 to 1 to win the conference for a guy who's just all he does is win. Sure.
Yeah, and they are in a good position at quarterback if Caden Salter gets hurt, with number 1 recruit Julian Lewis at QB sitting right behind him as a true freshman. Depending on which publication you look at, but that's a position that they are stacked at, that they could handle an injury there. SEC?
Please.
Let's get into it. There's some numbers that kind of jump out to me, and I want to hear your thoughts, because there's a lot of big numbers on here that were a little surprising.
Oh man, well, based on some of the content that I've consumed so far, Oklahoma is going over 6.5 wins. Not only did they add John Mateer into the mix at quarterback, but their defense is pretty good. So Oklahoma is a program that has high expectations, traditionally high standards. You're putting the line at 6.5. I gotta think, especially after a down season last year, that Oklahoma is going to come out with laser focus, laser intention, and get over 6.5 wins. So that would be one.
Yeah, I mean, we released a graphic there, piecing together the toughest schedules in the SEC. Oklahoma was number 1 for me. They have a murderer's row, and this is why we have to play the games on the field, and I trust my guy Mateer. But on paper, from what this program has become under Venables, it seems like it's, even though they paid him all this money, shit or get off the pot. They've got a couple easy wins, but they do have Michigan sandwiched in between there as a non-conference. But you've got an up-and-coming Auburn team with a former Sooner there looking for a little revenge, Jackson Arnold. And then you've got Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, LSU to close out the season all in a row.
Man,
that doesn't get any more murderer's row than that. I feel better about at Tennessee with how crazy their offseason went versus when we released that graphic. But Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah. Tennessee at 8.5. First initial thought, I'd probably go under 8.5. Kind of feels like they hit their, I don't want to say hit their ceiling, but we're kind of stretching towards their ceiling these last couple of years. And I don't know, them getting 9 or more wins this year just seems, I don't want to say far-fetched, but I'd rather be on the under than the over in that one.
Yeah. I'd say this falls in line with USC, right? Can't trust this team to get you. They made it to the initial playoff, 12-team playoff, but with all the craziness that happened at the QB position, they lost maybe the best shifty wide receiver name in college football, Squirrel White. Yeah. Transferred out of there. Big games on the road at Alabama, but a lot of big games at home. Host Georgia, host Oklahoma, UAB, ETSU, a down Syracuse team. Yeah, I'd be sweating. I wouldn't feel comfortable laying any money there. I do not like any of their futures either.
Yeah. I think LSU. We've kind of already talked about this. I think LSU is going to have a big season. I think their offense is going to be like top 3 in all of college football. So I expect them to clear 8.5 wins, especially coming off kind of a down year last year relative to their expectations. So LSU over 8.5 wins for me. Texas over 9.5 wins for me. I like Texas's defense. They're currently projected to be one of the best defenses in college football. They have a ton of returning talent. Obviously, Arch Manning, expectations are high. Sark has really built the program up there in Austin. I totally and fully expect Texas to be the number, like number 1, number 2, number 3, basically a top 4, top 5 team in the rankings all season long. That's my expectation. So Texas over 9.5 wins for me. Let's see here. And then if you scroll down, Burns, to like Vanderbilt and some of those schools that are not currently on the sheet. Yeah, you got Kentucky at 5.5, Arkansas 5.5, Vanderbilt 5.5, Mississippi State 3.5. You think Vandy's going to go over 5.5? You think they're going to make a bowl this year?
Yeah, I think they are. Specifically because of just, man, our guy Pavia. He covers game. He keeps this team in games. Again, you can't be afraid of the name on the other side of the scoreboard, and Pavia does not do that. And we see all these teams. We expect him to be good because we've seen him in the past be good, but that's like me betting baseball. It's like Ken Griffey Jr. ain't walking out for the Mariners anymore. Like, stop betting Mariners like run lines because you remember watching them 20 years ago. So we already talked about it. I mean, they have to go to Virginia Tech after that game last year, but 2-3 wins non-conference, right? Utah State, Georgia State, Charleston Southern, but at South Carolina, you have LSU coming here, Missouri coming here, but at Texas, man, your lowest SEC team is Kentucky. Obviously, a new rivalry with Tennessee to end the season that they want to try and build, but they have to prove it on the field first. Getting to 7, I don't know, or 6, I should say, bowl eligible. I'm not sure if Pavia and Clark Lee have what it takes to have the upsets they did last year just because of this brutal road schedule.
That's how I see it too, Burns. I mean, it's nothing even against Vanderbilt. It's just the fact that they just play in this impossible conference. So I kind of agree. And Florida, I mean, 6.5 wins. Look, I'm not saying that they're going to go over, but I'm saying if a Florida Gator fan is listening to this podcast, they are absolutely chomping, dare I say, for us to call them out and say that they should be over 6.5 with DJ Lagway and the potential of that team. But dude, I just keep running into the same thing when I'm looking at these teams in the SEC. A lot of teams are really fucking good. So,
yeah, man. When it comes to a favorite bet that I like in this category, that I'll circle back to, that I actually will be betting in July because I think it's going to go down because of everything that we've talked about. It's already gone down a little bit. And that's LSU 19-1 to win the title. Listen, I'm very bought in. And we'll talk about it here in a little bit on Nussmeier, fixing the issues that he was having last year, inopportune turnovers, growing as a quarterback. I'm on the Nuss bus, all in on the Nuss bus. And that's something I will have sitting in my hopper for a few months just because that's the one, in my opinion, that can change is the national title because it's going to be the most bet from the public because it's heavier odds.
right. I like that bet. As far as Alabama and Georgia also being at the top there with Texas at 9.5 wins. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, it's shit or get off the pot already for DeBoer. As crazy as that sounds, clearly with the temper tantrum out of Tuscaloosa, they cannot miss a 12-team playoff. Missing the inaugural one was just sheer embarrassment. I mean, that's all they have, that fucking bum-ass town in Alabama.
Whoa.
Kidding. Great city, great stadium.
Shut up.
Listen, they're going to have to – everyone's laughing at Florida State. At the end of the day, you got to show up and play the game. It's a road game to open your season. Get a couple easy ones. But then at Georgia, hot damn, end of September. At Georgia, at Missouri, sounds crazy, but at South Carolina, you have LSU, you have Oklahoma. Listen, I think a bold prediction from this guy, I think this is an 8-win team tops. I think their defense can carry them, but I think there's too many question marks at the quarterback position and at the coaching position. I think DeBoer is out by the end of the year, and I think Alabama is on the sideline again for another missed college football playoff.
I was gonna say you taking their under in the win total and some of the things you were saying. I was thinking that's not really a hot take, but DeBoer being out after 2 seasons, that's pretty spicy. That's pretty spicy.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't have this many people alive that have seen 6 national titles and just be like, all right, that guy left. Yeah, we're okay with just kind of going to the Holiday Bowl from here on out.
For sure.
That's just not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Sure. Any closing thoughts on any of these teams? I mean, the only big thing that I don't think we covered that really stuck out to me was South Carolina. I mean, this is the most talked about team. Norris Sellers is the most hyped player in the country, in my opinion, beyond Arch Manning, just because of how they closed out last year. I mean, I think they have a favorable schedule. I'm very down on Ole Miss this year. I'm down on Texas A&M this year, but it always throws a wrench when it sucks their rivalry as a powerhouse. So they not only do they have to go through this fucking SEC gauntlet, who's waiting for them in the final game of the year? Clemson. It's an insane schedule. Again, just brutal to have that as your non-conference, but yeah, I like the over. I'm going to buy into some of the hype, and Lenore Sellers can get him there.
You just said last week on the podcast that you're fading South Carolina.
Yeah, but I didn't. I thought it was going to be like I didn't look at the win totals when I was looking at it last week. I thought it was going to be 9.5, and when I saw 7.5, it just feels a little too much of a overcorrection. So I'll eat my words on that one. I didn't know the win total at the time.
Yeah, like you said, Carolina, a lot of hype, Sellers, high expectations. Some people think he can be a similar player to Cam Newton. We shall see. Why are you down on Texas A&M, bro? What they do to you?
Nothing, just kind of the odd man out. I'm just not a firm believer in Marcel Reed in this conference. Put him in the Big 12. He'd truly shine, but I just think there's too many dogs that need to eat, and I think they're just going to be kind of pushed out. That's really all it comes down to.
Are you concerned about Marcel's size and durability, or is it his actual play?
Yeah, I'd say it's more of the durability, and you need to be fully polished with that arm. Obviously we watched him completely dominate with his legs in that LSU game last year. I mean, that's not going to happen. Football coaches are so good at scheming these type of players when they get a full off season. So it'd be interesting to see what that looks like in the SEC this time around. Yeah, nothing personal. They're just left out.
Sure. All right. Yeah, I think that's about it for now.
Yep. I will say I do have one last number that will be on the graphic you'll see at the end. and that's Bo Pribula in Missouri over 7.5. Favorable schedule to open up: Central Arkansas, Kansas, and Louisiana, Raging Cajuns, with UMass as well. They have South Carolina sandwiched in there, but at worst, that should be a 4-1 start to the season. And then we only need 4 more wins. So their conference schedule with teams like Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, question mark Auburn, Arkansas as well as question mark of what they can produce. I like the upside on this Missouri team with a more agile quarterback. Yeah, and I like their odds to potentially make the playoffs at 8-1.
Hey, all fair points.
All right, ready to cruise through these little guys?
Yes.
Let's do it. All right, let's start with the AAC. So I've got a hot take here. Navy's making the playoff this year.
You love the academies, though.
That is fair, but Blake Horvath showed he's not an academy quarterback, and he's back.
Yep.
And
he is.
And Alex, let me read you this schedule because these boys are definitely going to be starting off 6-0. It is very favorable for the midshipmen of Navy: VMI, UAB, Tulsa, Rice, Air Force, Temple, Florida Atlantic, North Texas. That's actually an 8-0 start.
They could get tripped up in a couple of those.
They have
But
two bye weeks sandwiched in between there as well.
nice. I do expect Navy to have a great season. I'm on the same page as you, especially them returning Horvath and just building on the momentum from the success that they had last year. This is their window to 100% capitalize. So I'm with you. I don't hate that bet at 18-1. It's a fun sprinkle.
Yeah, listen, this is what the bet's going to come down to as we saw last year. And, there is a game at the end of the year at Memphis that off another bye week that I would be a little worried about. But listen, it all comes down to the Notre Dame game, right? If they lose by 50 again, it doesn't matter if they're 11-1 in the AAC. They're probably not going to be ranked high enough. But if they compete, stay within 2 scores of that Notre Dame game, I think that 18-1 ticket might be on hedging on that game if I can see this team as an 11-win team.
Sure. In other news around the conference, I mean, Tulane has really seemingly built a strong program over these last few years.
Yeah,
I would probably be more bullish on Tulane's upside than I would say a team like Memphis, for example.
Okay, that's fair. Do you see Tulane has Northwestern on the schedule opening up?
I did see that. Yeah.
So be an interesting test.
I think the line is 7. I think Tulane's a touchdown favorite.
Yeah.
USF, I know out of all the schools to call out, but they had pretty high expectations last year, and it all kind of fell apart for them because they had a pretty good season in 2023. And I am just curious if Alex Golesh is going to be able to respond and have that team and have those boys ready to go. I kind of lean yes. I kind of feel like last year's disappointment is setting up for this year's comeback. So just initial glance, USF over 6.5 wins.
Yeah, look, I looked at the American Conference quite a bit because of just kind of analyzing this Navy bet, and they have a chance to prove it right out of the gate. They host Boise State week 1. USF does. And I mean, that's a season-defining win for the locker room, 100%.
100%. If they are able to win that one, look out. But UTSA at 7.5, that seems a little rich. didn't they have a down year last season?
Middling. It was definitely not up to expectations that they were hoping. The only thing I would say with them is that I trust Jeff Traylor as a coach, especially in this conference, to make noise from any kind of area. And their home environment is just unbeatable, incredible. What they've got at San Antonio, town that loves its football. I like the UTSA number where it's at. I could see myself getting talked into a 6-1 ticket to win the conference, just because there's a question mark to Tulane, and then they avoid Navy and Memphis in the regular season.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And listen, Tulane, just real quick to wrap them up, they got TJ Finley in there. Nothing screams confidence like a guy that's been on his 5th team in 6 years in college football. And then they also were lucky enough to land Brandon Sullivan, who you might remember from the black and gold Iowa days as being one of those great stat lines of like 6 completions, 17 attempts, and 66 yards. Yeah, so that's what Tulane has to deal with at quarterback. Losing Darian Mensa is huge for them. I'm actually surprised that number is 8.5. They're returning a lot of talent on defense. You're right. John Summerall's built a program there, and they've just been consistently good. We're talking about the AAC, not the AAC of the past. So there are some winnable games and some lowly teams in this conference as well.
Yeah.
Yep. I also think Charlotte under 3.5 is going to be one of my big under bets. We'll talk about that later in the season, but Tim Album, scumbag.
Whoa.
I just left Ohio after their first MAC championship. Just left them on the bus.
Tim, if you're listening to this, sorry, bud.
Yeah, got his ass. CUSA, really not much here. The land of 10,000 to 1 teams, odds-wise, to win the title. Liberty is one of the higher group of 5 make a playoff odds-wise. Boise's up there, and who we just saw, Tulane and Memphis are also up there. But one of those group of 5 teams is going to make it, so it'd definitely be in everyone's best interest to look at some of these odds in the conferences you're not watching every Saturday.
Yeah. I don't have too much to weigh in on this conference. I need to get into the weeds of the previews. I'm not going to pretend to bullshit you on anything here.
Yeah, the only thing I will say about this conference, I'm in the same boat. I only have one note, is that buyer beware on Liberty. Although they're more than capable of running the table in the CUSA. Never mind. I wrote down the wrong note for Liberty. They have a very favorable schedule. That 9.5 looks very juicy to me. At Bowling Green, come on. We'll take all of that. Eddie George and Bowling Green ain't getting off the bus. So I don't see anything very crazy in this conference happening. Seems like a favorable one. Sunbelt?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sunbelt, James Madison, Raging Cajuns, Texas State, newly anointed Pac-12 school, Texas State. I believe this is going to be their final season then in the Sunbelt. And, another conference that just really doesn't have much behind it. But one thing that jumps out is the App State 5.5 program that was perennially winning 9-10 games. All of a sudden just kind of middling again.
Yeah. Same with Coastal Carolina at 5.5. What jumps out to me that probably jumps out to a lot of people would be Texas State at 7.5. Like you had mentioned, is that official that they're joining the new Pac-12 or new Pac-8 or whatever they're calling it?
Yeah, it's official. Yeah. I believe over the weekend it was official.
Okay. I mean, it just feels like Texas State over the last couple of years has gained new momentum that they had previously not had in that football program. It just seems like this Texas State program is kind of like a freight train when it comes to them building momentum and just the hype around the program. So I like to buy on teams who have that type of energy because it's not hard. It's not easy to come by to have that type of buzz around your program. So Texas State, just off the vibes alone, over 7.5 wins.
The vibes alone. I like it. Yeah. Nothing really jumped out to me of like I need to take that, as far as make playoff odds. This could be the conference that produces an undefeated long shot, because I think when we look at the Mountain West, I think Boise is very vulnerable this year when we look at their schedule. So it's very I think it's in everyone's best interest to really look at outside of Boise State. There is some numbers to go grab when it comes to odds outside of there. Walker Howard at Louisiana, really good quarterback. I like Louisiana over 7.5, but nothing official as of today.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep it moving.
Let's look at the MAC. The return of the MAC. Akron, no odds because they are academically ineligible before the season starts. Incredible news to see out of the MAC a couple months ago. That's just so brutal. So brutal.
Yeah, it is.
Listen, I do have one note here of something that I really liked when I break down the schedule, and some reason I got it confused with Liberty, but it's actually pertaining to Ohio Bobcats. Their win total at 7.5. Look, can they go undefeated in the MAC? Absolutely. Returning Parker Navarro, incredible talent. Dude keeps plays alive, but he's not going to, it's not like we haven't seen quarterbacks like him in the MAC before. He's not exactly like the best in the world. Their first 3 games are at Rutgers. West Virginia goes to Athens, Ohio, actually, which is pretty cool. Right across the river there, the West Virginia-Ohio border, and then at Ohio State. So, I mean, in all likelihood, that's an 0-3 start, right? I see 2 more losses within midweek MACtion and some of these other MAC teams. I just don't see this team being a 1-loss MAC team. That's why I like Ohio on the under 7.5 for the season win total.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I don't have any initial hot takes. I guess I would say between Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, and Western Michigan, they're all at 4.5. Do your research, find out who has the most upside, and take the over, because one of those teams is winning at least 6 games. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's going to be some money to be made in the overs for the bottom of the MAC, because more than half the conference is below the 5-win total. And we actually cleaned up some money on the futures we gave out last year on some overs in the MAC. So disrespectful. We will find some value in there. Toledo, 6th best odds to make the playoff group of 5 team. Listen, they'll have the resume if they get it done, because they are at Kentucky to open up, and then mid-season, a weird scheduled game. 5 games into the MAC season, they go at Washington State on October 25th.
That is weird.
So they will have the resume if they were able to somehow beat both of those teams to represent, but you won't see me placing a fucking dollar on that 18-1 number to make the playoff. I've watched this team too long. I know my lesson.
Sure.
And Eddie George expected to make a bowl his first game from Vegas. We'll see how that goes. A little bit of a tough schedule from Bowling Green, but obviously a lot of eyes are going to be on such a big name at head coach there.
No doubt. And UMass joins the conference.
Yep. UMass, as we're losing Northern Illinois' final year, and we're gaining a Boston recruiting grounds. Which UMass was in the MAC, I believe, 10 years ago. So they are returning to the return of the Mass. How about that?
It's good. Where's Northern Illinois going?
They're going to the Mountain West, which is up next.
Wow.
Yeah, they accepted that. I'd say early February, late February. And it's going to be a depleted Mountain West because this is Boise State's last year. They're going to the Pac-12. San Diego State's going to the Pac-12. And I believe UNLV is staying behind. But who knows why. Anyway, these by far the most tilted odds. Boise State to make the playoff, 2-1. Boise State to win the title, 500-1.
Holy.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's now top four get buys, no matter your finish in the conference, not top four highest rated conference winners. So in all likelihood, even if they did go undefeated, Boise State doesn't have a strong enough schedule to get into that top four ranking. And I think the money behind the scenes wouldn't even allow it anyway.
Yeah.
You see anything that jumps out to you? I mean, listen, Boise State, how do you jump back from losing Ashton Genty? Maddox is there at QB still, and it's a favorable Mountain West schedule, but they do have to go to Notre Dame and then at USF to open the season that we talked about. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see them making the playoff this year.
Yeah, it's hard to follow up what they did last year, just with everything going right and them having an unbelievable running back who was drafted in the top 6 of the NFL this year. So I hear what you're saying. I can't really say anything stands out. It does feel like UNLV has continued to just build that program, kind of seemingly out of nowhere. So UNLV definitely catches my attention at the number 2 spot with 8.5 wins, as well as 18-1 to make the playoff and 6-1 to win the conference. That would be a team I'd rather probably buy than Boise State, personally. This one's a little bit random, but Hawaii at 5.5 and 30-1 to win the conference. Burns, wasn't it just like 2 years ago where Hawaii was like the worst team in college football?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Timmy Chang's building something out there.
Yeah, exactly. And you know me, I like programs that have that type of momentum. So that number is interesting to me. If that number is at 5.5, I think the books are saying we think. Obviously, the market sets the line, but I feel like the consensus is more to bet the under on that than the over.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, they have a favorable setup to their schedule. 4 of their first 5 games are on the Big Island, and then their first game on the road at Arizona, week 2, is right there in Tucson. So one of the closest stadiums that you can get to. So I mean, it's favorable before the bye. And they don't have really a tough non-conference schedule. Teams like Portland State, Sam Houston, and a Stanford team that's trying to find an identity that, by the way, has to travel to places like the Carolinas, somehow also got a trip to Hawaii. So maybe that's just a bonus before the season starts off, week 1 for them, week 0, actually.
Wow. Do you think, do you have any thoughts? I guess any other thoughts in this conference? I guess before you answer that, and we're obviously going to cover all of this in the conference previews, Bronco Mendenhall went to Utah State after one season.
Yep. Yeah, kind of weird in conference changing.
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Surprising.
Yeah, listen, man. Mountain West just feels, I don't know. It's like completely changing next year. Obviously, such huge notoriety last year with Boise State making it, UNLV really coming out of nowhere. I mean, they bring in Dan Mullen this year, so um, going to have some still spotlight on the team. But your boy is back, and Jay Norvell is really another coach in the shit or get off the pot. But your boy Braden Fowler Nicolosi, he's playing at Colorado State.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I think the Mountain West is more wide open than it's ever been with Boise State at the helm. So I'm going to be revisiting this when it comes to conference, any sort of conference, because even a team down here with Sean Lewis, a different style, San Diego State at 45-1 to win the conference, I could see that definitely being a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, they've had success in the past. So
Yep. And last is the Outcasts here, just 4 to clean up the Pac-2. In the independents, UMass leaving, there's only 2 independents left. Notre Dame, really interesting, right? I think they have a favorable schedule, in my own opinion. It's just going to come down to, can CJ Carr be the man that they're looking for at quarterback, and how do you bounce back from such a, I don't know. Obviously, no one's ever going to admit, did we intend or did we expect to win the national title last year? They'd never say, no, we didn't. So is it going to be a letdown from that perspective? But, having Greathouse at wide receiver, clearly a young talent, we'll see.
We definitely will see. I mean, if their over under is 10.5, what? So if they lose 2 games, then the under is cashing on that.
Yeah. And they reignite Catholic First Convicts week 1, Sunday night game of that week 1.
Yeah, exactly. Notre Dame at Miami, primetime week 1, at the Hard Rock to start the year. And then Notre Dame hosts Texas A&M. They host Purdue. Then they have to go on the road. I believe this is a road game. Yeah. Yes. On the road to Arkansas, which is very tricky. Host Boise State. Host NC State. Host USC. At Boston College. Host Navy. At Pitt. Burns, this team is 1,000% losing at least 2 games.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
With the loss of Riley Leonard, with the loss of Al Golden, those 2 losses alone. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. Just, and to make the playoff -140, it just screams a bunch of layoff bets. Nothing's juicy enough for me to want to get in on it. Maybe an under like 9.5 win total. Maybe be spicy enough. You could see 3 losses in this. Because one team we didn't talk about in the ACC, we're not going to bring him back up, but I do like Pitt and Eli Holstein this year. So that's a spicy little game late in the season at Pitt.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, 10.5. That's pretty rich, in my opinion.
Yeah, interesting. Shout out to Jim Mora getting UConn's win total up to 7.5. I mean, when's the last time seeing a UConn team actually projected to make some noise around the country? Their schedule is extremely favorable, playing a bunch of CUSA. Their toughest game is probably Duke, hosting Duke. But, man, don't sleep on Jim Mora and those UConn Huskies. They might just not be a all-the-way basketball school, because that schedule is laughably easy. And if they even sniff top-ranked non-conference team going like 11-1 and something, I don't want to hear anything about last year's Indiana team.
Right.
As far as the Pac-2, Don't expect him to really do anything. It seems like a mess season. I mean, if this was the year Toledo was going to go out to Pullman and beat Washington State, I think this would be the one. So they did get kind of lucky in that from a personal perspective.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Lastly, let's take a look at some of the Heisman odds, because one of my other bets that I'll be placing here in July is going to be a Heisman bet. This is another market, along with the national title, that I'd highly recommend getting in on. Arch opened up at 9.5 to 1 at the end of the last season. And look at, I mean, best you're getting is 700 at FanDuel. It's already giving away some. So a player like that not in jeopardy of really losing a job or taking really any tough hits in practices is going to be nothing but going up with all that hype surrounding him. Any players that jump off the page to you?
Yeah, with Arch, it's not that I don't think he's not capable, but I think with Arch, those are tough expectations, especially to be the front runner, and the public is betting him because of his last name. So I feel like you're not getting good value on Arch just from that standpoint. I think Klubnik at Clemson, I think that's a very good bet. Just a lot of it just due to the conference that Clemson is in. And I just think with all of the continuity that Clemson has built, I think Klubnik and Nussmeier are both worth healthy flyers for sure. Sellers, man, I brought it up. Some people think his upside is like Cam Newton-esque. Well, if that happens, he definitely might win the Heisman. So that would be someone that I would circle. I know some people would call out DJ Lagway. They love his potential. So I know that would be a name that people would take a look at. And then just looking at the list here, from what I can see, John Mateer, obviously people love him and the flair that he brings to the game. So that one's interesting for sure. Miller Moss at 50 to 1. I mean, that dude does sling the ball, and Louisville proved last year that they were pretty high powered on offense, and that was with Tyler Shaw, that quarterback. And now you got Miller Moss. So I'm not saying it's going to hit, but at 50 to 1, I've seen worse bets in my opinion. Yeah, I think that's a good starting point, Burns.
Yeah. And there's a couple things I want to point out historically. So, if you look at this list, two things that'll jump out is Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, the two bigger names, not a quarterback. And what jumps out to me is in the Heisman history, there's been 4 wide receivers that have won in the past 95 years or 90 years. What I'm looking for if I'm wanting to take a risk on a wide receiver, obviously the name is there, but they're ahead of their quarterbacks. So obviously saying pretty much getting the nod has kind of risen his odds. But you look at Bama's quarterbacks when it comes to Ty Simpson, he's behind Ryan Williams as well. That would make me feel comfortable placing a ticket on a wide receiver. And then the other thing that really stuck out to me is week 1, we're going to know a lot, right? So the top 5 players in the Heisman pool play each other week 1.
True.
LSU plays Clemson. Ohio State plays Texas. So when we look at that, if you really like a player in this field and you expect that team to win, you better get a ticket on that player, because a win is really going to help that. One thing that I did notice looking at Heisman results, when we look down the board, because last year we obviously hit 50 to 1. And it's going to be tough to find 50 to 1 again this year because Travis Hunter was such a special player. But 3 years in a row now, in 5 of the last 9 years, we've had non-national championship contending teams represent a Heisman on the stage. So what that means is teams with 3 losses are getting Heismans and it's really coming down to the play on the field and accelerating versus pass, where it's usually like the best player on the best team or best player on a team that's going to be in the final. That's something that really jumped out for wanting to take someone further down the board. Like Miller Moss comes out, like you said, backing up your point. Louisville can come out of the ACC, be represented in the playoff at 10-2, 11-1. All of a sudden, that's a nice little ticket you're holding 50-1.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, when we look at down the list, Haynes King, love the guy. So opening up a big win would be huge at Colorado week 1. Obviously, Jake, those odds going to 200 is crazy. And one really, really one down the board when we look at a player that could stand out, and I can't believe he's this far down the board. We talked about him. Is Texas Tech can completely go undefeated in the Big 12. They've got the Big 12 is soft. He's got a cannon of an arm. He can put up gaudy stats like we've seen in Texas Tech in the past, like the Mike Leach days. R.I.P. Pirate. That's a name that really stuck out to me of like, if you really want to go grab one, is it realistic? Probably not. But how great is it to have a ticket 200-1 of a team that could potentially be one loss in the playoff or undefeated?
Yeah, when you put it like that. Where
Yeah.
can I get my money down, sir?
That's exactly right. Yeah, so I mean that covers a lot of our futures. That's we had a lot to talk about, but I mean wrapping up, this is these are really the top 5 takeaways that I had of so far in July. My favorite futures: Navy over 8.5, Missouri over 7.5, John Mateer 33-1, Ohio under 7.5, and Georgia Tech over 7.5. Talked about not needing to rush to the books with win totals. Can probably sit on those, but some of them are getting juicy, like -160, -190. I would highly recommend going to an alt total of like a solid number, like over 9 or over 8. Throws the push into the equation, but carrying -165, it's just, even if you think it's a sure hit, there's too many variables in a full season to even worry about that juice.
Right. Yeah, cool graphic, man.
Thanks, dude.
Where'd you get that shirt?
Tommy Bahamas, dude. Only the only place I shop these days.
Cool.
Yep. Any last second things from you that stuck out to you before we sign off?
Thought you made a good point on Iowa. Nebraska over their win total still is rattling around my brain. Colorado over their win total is rattling around in my brain. But yeah, man, this kind of felt like not the first week back at school, but the second week back at school, where you're actually diving into your classes and you're like, oh shit, all right, this is gonna take me a minute to get back into this type of groove. That's how this pod felt. A lot of information.
Yeah, 100%. Like we said at the top, there's so many numbers out there you can go out and grab. Be careful not to overload the bankroll before week 0. But we'll definitely be circling back for our final futures. But be sure to get your Heismans for the players you like, because I will be betting John Mateer. And one that I left off, I will be betting LSU to win the national title at 19-1.
Yeah. No, good stuff, man.
All right. We're back next week with coaching landscape, returning production from the teams, and what those schemes might look like.
Can't wait. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Happy 4th.
Love you guys. Love America.